rainy day in eastern Pennsylvania on July 28th. It's got me thinking. They even had a tornado warning, and that almost never happens here. That's nothing compared to the storm inside the human heart. I mean, it's like at least 2 layers. At least. I mean, when you think about mankind shooting itself in the foot, if you ever get to the point where you realize mankind, whether he be poor or rich, has been shooting himself in the foot. I mean, I feel much more pity for the rich because they'll go to a lower hell for their antics, you know. They have the power to harm children, priests molesting children, priests rich in faith, rich in reverence. Heck, you even call a priest reverend because people respect them. They're rich in social capital. Almost anybody wants to help their local minister do whatever project he wants to do, right? Rich in having people at their beck and call because of so-called respect. Look at the people who were rich with this kind of respect back at the time of Jesus. The so-called rich in knowledge, the Pharisees, Sadducees, all these people, chastising Jesus, right? Jesus eventually becomes much greater. He brought an actual real good to the world. And there were people who couldn't stand him. Look at the time that Edison put Tesla through. Like, Tesla, he dies with his name just ran through the mud because a guy who's already rich in multiple ways, Edison, didn't like him. Why do we have to watch our own species perform this way? Okay? People who are rich in power, even in the so-called poorest places, like you talk about African nations, you know, even if you talk about South American nations, you have these strong men who can't stop fucking with people, you know? Like, I remember when Reverend Moon made a fish powder so that it would be nutritious fish saved in powdery form that can be transported around the world to make, reconstitute, make fish cakes or whatever you want. Any kind of protein stews or soups that require highly nutritious, right? So the warlord wouldn't let him import the fish powder into his nation because he didn't want the people to love Reverend Moon more than him, the warlord. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I remember, trying to help kids keep their purity, and you would have people thwart my lectures about the perils of human papillomavirus, for example, because they didn't want human papillomavirus to be vilified or stigmatized. And these are little virgin seventh graders who, majority of them probably never had sex unless there was some sort of rape situation. But they have their entire life ahead of them to plot the best course out of all possible courses. Why are you warping the message being given in the class? Because this person observing one of my classes thought that I should tell them that everybody is eventually going to have human papillomavirus, which the National Institute of Health deemed to be the case. And I'm like, even the National Institute of Health is not calculating what happens for people who do not have sex, because everybody who had sex and everybody who had contracted human papillomavirus, well, they shouldn't be stigmatized. So guess what? We shouldn't tell people about avoiding human papillomavirus, right? We shouldn't. And, you know, they had created Gardasil and created a way for some strains to be mitigated, or they created a vaccine. And it mitigated the threat of 4 strains of human papillomavirus. But 19 strains they had no such success with. So they moved from Gardasil to this public policy of, oh, everybody's going to get it. And I'm like, but these kids don't have to get it. And they have certain choices that they can make such that they don't have to get it. Like, so why do we have to tell them, oh, screw it, you're just going to get it anyway? Like, people who are rich in knowledge start hiding knowledge or hoarding knowledge for some reason. So it's all kinds of, like, this is the storm. This is the storm. So we all living in this storm. It doesn't matter where you are. I'm telling you, it is the human condition, and we're all living in this storm. And the big question is it perpetual? That's the big question. Is the storm perpetual? And I have to tell you, no. Reverend Moon came and demystified the game. Why are some of the smartest people acting in the most treacherous ways? Why do you have like 2 billionaires, I'm thinking of Bill Gates, promoting printed chicken or, fake beef, lab-grown ticks to give people an allergy to beef? Like, why are you doing this? Why is George Soros trying to promote the destruction of the United States? in his quest for the ridiculous concept of a borderless world. There are, at last I count, 192 nations. Could be more by now, I don't remember, and I don't know clearly. But that's a lot of nations, and you're going to thwart the will of 192 different peoples' desire to protect what they built from other forms of life, desire to protect their cultures. And you're so offended by the billions of people's cultures that you would create out of their nations a cesspool of intermixing according to your personal hopes. Like, why do we have to endure you? Like, you think your name, you're going to go down in history and your name is lifted up? No, you're going to go down in history as a lustful person who tried to gain more sense of importance. Why? Why can't you be happy with the billions that you already have from your previous schemes? Why can't you disappear and fade into the recesses of history without, one more so-called success story, your successful dissolution or dissolving of borders? Why are we enduring you? And the answer is, we are in this storm as a species because of sin. And all the crazy things that I just described, those things come from sin. But if you don't want to understand sin from the biblical or scriptural or even religious point of view, what's the problem? Psychology says that we're having deep emotional problems. Even psychology says, why do we have deep emotional problems? Yes, there are chemical imbalances, but that doesn't account for the majority of emotional wounds that lead to this type of excessive desire between each other, where we make life unbearable for one another in some quest for some type of false solution to our feelings. The root of this condition, this false human condition, it's already been demystified because the Messiah came and he actually taught a form of humanity or a human way of being that is in keeping with the design of human beings, and it has everything to do with the foundation of family. Every classic evil that's making this attempt right now is trying to destroy the family. The Chinese, in order to overcome the might of America, only hopes to dissolve America from within. And what is it that they're doing? They're trying to teach our children moral corruption, which means sexual corruption, which means family corruption. They're trying to make people have a sort of utilitarian view of sexual pleasure, to where the respect of your own partner is not even there. People are just using each other sexually. This type of concept dissolves the family structure within one's own life. The families that they make for future children are destroyed right there. Listen, this is why you have TikTok accounts, raunchy stuff, being greenlit and piped into the cell phones of American kids. But the Chinese don't let their own kids see that stuff. Why? Because it's their last weapon. And Reverend Moon said it was the first weapon. And now that the forces of Satan are beaten by the end of the Cold War, the biggest tool of Satan, which is communism, which is also offended by the healthy family. The opiate of the masses from the communist point of view was religion, and another one was family. And the communists preferred people to depend on the state, not their family, not their local community, through religious organizations galvanizing the community together and solving their problems as a community. No, that's the competitor to the communist solution. So they don't like their competitor, which means they don't like religion, they don't like the family. So these communists, in China, they like their families. They like their family structure. But they hate our family structure because it keeps us strong. Well, the same answer was demystified. Reverend Moon demystified it, saying that the root of the craziness, this storm, which seems never ending, the root of this stormy condition, this fallen state of mankind, was destruction of the first family. So what we inherited was the psychological damage, and the root of the problems of the human family, well, they seem swept under the rug. We can't get a grip on why we keep acting crazy. We act crazy because the majority of us are wounded children. The footprint of God would be on earth, the family. That is where he is most expressed, in the love of a father and of a mother. And that love has the ability to be like salve, healing, soothing other kinds of emotional wounds. Wounds or harms or pain is a part of life. But suffering isn't. And love for human beings has a way of keeping pain from becoming suffering. But when there is no love there, pain can become suffering. Human beings are suffering due to the lack of a certain quality of parenting. And there is no cure when bad parenting is installed or psychologically damaged parents are installed by nothing more than their sexcapades. They drag a new life into their pain. Like, there is no cure for that except to be born again. That's the meaning of born again. That is the necessity of being born again. So I'm not throwing religion under the bus, but and I'm not throwing science under the bus, but human beings have been suffering. This is demystified. You don't have to believe in Reverend Moon, and you don't have to believe in God. Even Reverend Moon said, if you install a teaching that abstinence before marriage and fidelity in marriage is the expected standard for your sexual behavior in your country, it will go straight to heaven. This has nothing to do with wanting your God to get some sort of ego boost from being recognized. It's just the nature of the design of the human being requires this type of healthy relationship with parents. And a certain kind of sex ensures that the attention of a child, there is locked into marriage and attention and appreciation for each child. Because if your only sex partner and you created a life, there's already a commitment in place that benefits that life. And you can say it 50,000 other ways. And this is why the meek will inherit the earth, which is what Jesus said. Because people who are simply clear about simple things, okay, are going to enjoy heaven on earth. Okay? It's just that simple. The world is not going to be destroyed so that God could create a different kind of mankind. God didn't make a mistake in the creation of mankind. Human beings made a mistake in the creation of mankind. I'll say that again. God did not make a mistake in the creation of mankind. Human beings made a mistake in the creation of mankind. And where we create mankind is at the point of sexuality. That's where we create mankind. We're the ones making the mistake from the godly position of creator of mankind. That is the seat of creation, the sex organ. We are misusing the sex organ, the very creator of mankind. So we are the false god, or the failed god. We are the failed god of our world, creating this storm. And we learn how to recreate the conditions of the storm from a fallen sex, ignorant sex, self-centered sexual stance. This is provable through social health studies, psychological studies. This is completely provable at this ripe time in human history. But has the forces of darkness used sexual immorality for some reason? Are they protecting sexual immorality? Yes, they're protecting sexual immorality now. Even though it's scientifically understood more clearly, demystified, that the root of sin, the root of psychological like craziness, causing this storm, causing us to emotionally override our own best senses. The root of that is the destruction of the family, and the core of the family is where man and woman get together to create life. We are the God that we are upset at. And that's why most people cannot admit what I'm saying. We are the God that we are upset at. We don't even acknowledge our own responsibility in this matter. You should not recklessly, you should not disrespect your future children by treating your sperm, your egg, with recklessness. Hey, I don't need to spell it out. The Messiah came, and we're playing games. And hey, if you're going to continue to play this game, your people, your nation is going to decline. And I'm black. I invested in abstinence education in the black community for years. People have invested in the destruction of the black family. It weakened black people to the point where black way of life is synonymous with degradation in America. Where once the lowest divorce rate was a proud feature of the black family and black life, we have been reduced by anti-family measures that have been taken against black people, eugenicists. If you really wanted to destroy a people, China figured it out. Make them immoral. They'll destroy themselves. Make them hate their own future family secretly by ignoring the needs of their children through sexual temptation, the normalization of reckless sex. If you want a people to destroy themselves, normalize reckless sex. But even if you destroy those people, if white people, eugenicists from the 1920s and 30s actually succeeded in eradicating black people, would they eradicate their problems? No, because their real problem is sin. It's not being better than black people. Being better than black people was no real solution for those eugenicists. Being loved by their parents would have been a proactive measure against their suffering. And they didn't understand that. Chinese people, you think capitalism, the destruction of capitalism, is going to cure all your problems? No. The destruction of capitalism is not going to cure all your problems. Okay? The destruction of America is not going to cure all your problems. You have the rule of what goes around comes around, and you're promoting sexual immorality because you hate American people for being strong, for voting at the ballot box. So if you think if you destroy their minds, they will dissolve their own weaponry and you can take them over. And if you actually get what you desire, do you actually get what you desire? Because of sin and because the mysterious causes of the sickness, the storm, is not being embraced, it doesn't matter if you fix other issues. You will still have the root problem. You cannot take sex for yourself without considering the child that sex is. It's the only gateway for all of our people, and you're going to disrespect it. So that's the problem. You are disrespecting mankind. Your ultimate vote to disrespect mankind is to put your penis into the woman that you don't love. It's to accept sperm from a man that you don't actually love. That actually has an effect, an unloving effect on the child that comes. You're the one that's hamstringing, hog-tying mankind. You're the problem that you've been looking for. You need to repent. Repent, repent, repent. You need to repent for your culture. You need to repent for your sexual sin. You need to repent for not being a good parent. You need to repent. Get married in order to have sex. Repent for not doing that. Repent for not intending to do that. Repent for your entire blood lineage. If you have to go back, X number of generations and see this type of unmarried procreation, repent for it. Repent for it. Yeah, sex is supposed to be under the umbrella of God's cooperation to create another life. Like, nobody, when we're facing like dire situation of rampant sin because of children having emotional problems, crime filling the street, crime filling the high places, people, like I said, moguls have to do extra projects just in order to feel important, to offset the experience that they had as a child who didn't have enough. Enough is in the eye of the beholder, and these children never have enough. Repent. Repent, because if you are into sex outside of marriage, trust me, you are part of the problem. You're part of the problem. And you need to repent. You're being told. You're being told. Go pray about it. You are being told. This is unambiguous. Okay? Here's the deal. If we were to get rid of sex outside of marriage, inside of 1.5 generations, we would see a decrease in all forms of crime. Corporate crime, all kinds of crime. Street crime, corporate crime, because we would reduce the number of psychologically impaired people. Because we would reduce the cause of the weakening, the psychological weakening. That's the deal. And if you can't think that far and care that far in advance for your own race, that's the problem. You do not care. You're at the animal level of caring for future generations. How much do animals care about their offspring? Maybe one generation. But God is not like that. God cares about multiple generations in advance. Why don't we become more godly? Screw your moment of pleasure. Yes, she's beautiful. Yes, he's handsome. Yes, she's elegant. Yes, he's regal. But if he's not yours, leave him to your sister. Some sister that's married to him. Leave him. If she's not your wife, that's your sister. Leave her for one of your brothers to enjoy. It's why? Because what's at stake is the degradation of the human family. Okay? And Cain kills Abel after the fall of Adam and Eve's relationship. Cain kills Abel. That's why we have such a stormy situation. So, like I said, repent. Repent. And then a new day might dawn. A sunnier one.